This meeting is being recorded. Oh, sorry. This is the regular council afternoon meeting for April 4th, 2020. Meeting is being recorded live in a string on the District Summerland YouTube and council written verbal form public record available to the public viewing electronically or as a written record. Corporate officer, any late items? No late items. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Peak, Councillor Trainer, all in favor? And that carries. Consent agenda. Does any? Oh, I guess we should have done that before, but oh, thank you. Does somebody want to remove anything from the consent agenda? We just have a couple minutes. No removals. Okay, so if I could get somebody to move the consent agenda. Councillor Trainer, Councillor Betts, all in favor, and that carries. No correspondence. So we have one delegation today. I'd like to ask Janae if you could come up to the podium. This is on the Summerland Stone Fruit Triathlon. It's all yours. Welcome.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me today. I'm here to present a proposal for a triathlon in Summerland this summer called the Stone Fruit Triathlon. My objective is to bring back a vibrant community-based triathlon event to Summerland by creating an opportunity for both locals and out-of-town visitors to experience our small town while racing a challenging yet scenic course. My name is Janae Hole, and I have been involved in the triathlon scene since I was a kid. I am a coach with the Orca Swim Club here in town, as well as an EA and both the head coach and one of the directors of the new nonprofit that would oversee this event, pending approval from Societies BC. It's called Balanced Dynamics Coaching Society. This proposed event would have two distances in its inaugural year, a sprint distance and a try. We also plan to become a fundraising partner of the Summerland chapter of Kids Sport if this event goes ahead. Here I have a quick overview of the proposed courses. The sprint distance bike route would start with an out and back along Lakeshore, then a climb up Peach Orchard Hill before a loop around Fosbury and Logie Road, as you can see on the map. Cyclists would then return down Peach Orchard Hill before completing a second out and back along Lakeshore. The try route would avoid the hill, completing just the two out and backs along Lakeshore. For the run course, I've mapped out a beautiful 2.5 kilometer out and back that utilizes our great lakefront trail. Sprint distance athletes would complete the loop twice to reach the 5 kilometer mark, while tries would do it only once. This spectator-friendly route allows us to keep the entire south side of Lakeshore open to traffic throughout the event, limiting the impact on people staying at the resort or visiting other summer businesses along the lakefront. It also keeps many parking options open for the participants. This map shows an estimated swim and transition course, taking care to avoid the dog park that I've heard is coming to Peach Orchard Park. One area of possible concern that was brought up when I met with representatives from both the Works and Infrastructure and Parks and Rec team was the closure of the boat ramp for a portion of the event, as it would only be closed until 9 a.m. when the bike course should be completed by all athletes. I'm hoping that closing it won't become an inconvenience. It would also ensure a much safer bike and transition zone than other options we've thought of so far. But I would really appreciate any feedback on this. A few other questions that were raised in meetings include the Peach Orchard Campground entrance and exit being on the prospective bike course and the Summerland Yacht Club entrance and exit being on the prospective run course. Fortunately, after speaking with representatives from both organizations, we have found solutions that work well for everyone involved. In response to the other queries on the page on the screen, I'm in the process of securing a parking location. Have been keeping in touch with Alan from Triathlon BC regarding sanctioning, and am in communication with Central Interior Traffic Control about having a safety or a traffic management plan made up for the event. I think that should be about my 5 minutes. So I want to thank you again for listening to my proposal. I'm really excited about the possibilities of running this event this summer with the support of the community, and really appreciate any thoughts, suggestions, or ideas that would help get us closer to opening registration. Yeah, I'm open to any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I could manage the cycle down Peach Orchard Hill part. I'm not sure about the rest. Council, any questions? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I think this looks like a wonderful opportunity, a great event. I think there'll be some pretty good uptake in the community, I can imagine. My only suggestion for the parking lot for the boat launch area would be to actually have that communicated through possibly Parks and Rec, and to have a sign placed, like one of the sandwich boards placed for a couple weekends in advance, just to be let boaters know in advance that that day the ramp wouldn't be available from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Just for example, that'd be my only suggestion.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell.
I think people are, I mean, we're lucky in Summerland. This is just such a great place to have something like this. And maybe it'll be locals the first year, but if it goes on, I can see people coming from all over. I guess my only question was, have you checked the condition of Fosbury and Logie Road? Are they good enough for bike race? Because some spots are suspect.
The course, sorry, I'll go back to that page. I've driven around the course several times. The reason I would do an a circular route is that it allows us to just use one lane of traffic and not have to close that road, right? Once you continue past the corner point, it gets a lot worse. But if you take that left turn onto Logie, Logie's in quite good condition, at least the right-hand side of the road. There is about 200 meters at the end of Fosbury that just has a few potholes. But I think just having maybe some sweeping done there, or just having a few extra volunteers standing there to make sure that those potholes are avoided by athletes and flagging them off, I think that would work all right. If that helps answer.
And maybe they could be filled, maybe.
or that would work too, but.
Just speak to the guy next to you.
All right.
Anyone else? No, thank you very much. Then, so I guess the next step is staff will bring back a road closure plans for us to consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Now we have a public comment opportunity for any of the agenda items. No line, no. So the business emergency preparedness fund, and our fire chief. Welcome back, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. Glad to be back. So today I'm looking for your approval for $112,790. We're looking to, it's basically the same grant as almost last year, but a few more different items that we joined the RDOS, Town of Princeton, and the Village of Karamias. Looking to, and this grant is 100% funded, and the RDOS will look after all the monies. So it's your typical EOC grant that's looking for training that the town will do with these other members of the RDOS. And then we're also looking to improve our printer downstairs, some 4 laptops, magnetic dry eraser boards, and some consumables, some flip charts, and some EOC vests. And that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Council? Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I see who we're partnering with in this grant, and I know we've done similar kind of partnerships. Are the PIB included in the discussions to do these kind of partnerships? And if not, how could we encourage that?
I think they go out and get their own grants, but I'm not 100% sure. There is some consultation with them. We always have meetings with the Village of Oliver, Town of Osoyoos, and a couple others, and they decide if they want to join in or not. Does that make sense? So last time we did one of these, we did have one of the members of PIB attend, but they didn't join in with this grant. Okay.
Yeah, and I should add, it's not just the PIB, it's the OIB and the several of them. But I think the RDOS kind of includes them in their portion of the programming. Any other questions? No, if someone would like to bring a motion forward. The staff recommendation. Yes. Yeah. Councillor to approve and Councillor Trainer second. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7.2 fundraising partnership with Rotary, Director of Community Services.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider formally endorsing the Rotary Club of Summerland's offer to engage the community and coordinate fundraising efforts for the replacement of the Kiwanis Pier at Gordon Beggs Rotary Beach. As a follow-up to the Rotary's delegation presentation at the April 3rd Council meeting, staff met with Rotary to discuss their proposal. The Rotary Club noted their appreciation of the waterfront concept plan that Council has adopted. Rotary is proposing to partner with the District of Summerland by helping engage the community in support of the pier project, mobilizing stakeholders, and coordinating fundraising efforts. The Rotary Club is a registered charitable nonprofit organization and able to issue tax receipts as appropriate for donations towards the pier. They have also proposed to offer support for grant applications for pier construction. It is understood that the District of Summerland is ultimately responsible for pier removal, design, tendering, construction, and maintenance. If supported by Council, the Rotary Club of Summerland will initiate a fundraising committee for the pier and begin developing a fundraising plan and campaign. Staff are in the process of engaging a consulting firm to develop 3 concept options with Class C cost estimates for Council's future consideration. Staff recommend that Council support the Rotary Club's offer to engage the community and coordinate fundraising efforts for the replacement of the Kiwanis Pier. This fundraising partnership will assist the District of Summerland in not only replacing the current pier, but providing the community an enhanced pier with new and exciting features. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trainer.
Did the Rotary talk about a fundraising goal that they had in terms of how much they wanted to raise? And also, were they thinking about specific things that they wanted to fundraise for, like benches or any extras that might go on the pier, as opposed to just contributing to the base cost?
Through the mayor, they do not have a specific goal at this time. So they were waiting to see the concept plans that came back to Council and looking at fundraising for the enhancements above the basic pier costs, which are currently covered by the grant. So they haven't specifically outlined what features or enhancements they'd like. They love the idea of creating something bigger and better, and are waiting for the concepts to come through and the costing on that.
So maybe on the day then that we have that discussion, when that report comes with the options, they could come and be part of that discussion. And we could just maybe figure out kind of how they could best be incorporated and kind of leave their mark on this project. Kind of. Yeah. Thanks.
I guess everything will be clear once we receive those concepts, be clear for everybody. When is that scheduled to come to us? Do we know?
We are targeting the June 26th council meeting to have that. So that'll be depending on the consultant's time, but that's what our target is.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Peak.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. My question was the use of wood that was taken off the pier as it comes apart. Was it deemed that we wouldn't necessarily use that wood? It would not be efficient use to do it in a reconstruction?
Through the mayor, that is correct. So there is value to the wood on the pier, and after staff review, it was deemed appropriate to, and the Rotary is receptive of having that donated to them, and then they will in turn use it as a fundraising opportunity to sell it in the community as a contribution towards the project. But at this point, we're not seeing the value of putting that back on the for the next pier.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Move the staff recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, maybe just get Councillor Betts has a question first, perhaps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lori, is there any updates on the timeline for demolition at this point?
Just pass that on to Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Thank you, through the mayor. We actually just received, while we were sitting here in the committee of whole today, the section 11 to remove the deck portion of the pier. The pilings won't be removed until the temperature gets up above 17 degrees because there's some muscle work that has to happen. Prior to us taking the deck off, we do have to do a bird inventory, a bird study, and make sure there are no birds there. But if there aren't, then in the next few weeks, we should be pulling the deck off the pier.
Muscle work, we need strong men, you know. That's Councillor Trainer.
Joe, is the district doing that work, or do we have somebody else coming in to take it apart?
We're gonna try to take the deck off ourselves as our staffing. It's quite busy right now, but we're gonna try to squeeze that in the next little while, ideally. But the pilings, we'll have to engage a piling company to pull those out. And that'll be later June or July once the water warms up. So we'll do as much as we can in-house.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Just a question for Lori. The fundraising committee that that Rotary Club is setting up, will we be on that committee? Will we be represented on it?
If you would like to, I can make that recommendation to the Rotary for sure.
I guess if you see there's benefit or not, then I don't know. Leave that with you, I guess.
Okay.
So, Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the staff recommendation.
Seconder, Councillor Peak. Any further discussion? No, great to see this is moving forward. Yeah, thank you very much. Call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Next item, Apple Valley Cruisers overnight camping request. Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to consider the Apple Valley Cruisers request for overnight camping in the district's parking lot located at 9600 Brown Street during the Spring Fling car show from May 19th to 22nd this year. The event coordinator for the car show, which will be held in Memorial Park on Saturday, May 20th, has requested permission to allow up to 7 motorhomes and their car trailers to park and camp overnight at the parking lot while in town for the event. Due to the size of the rigs and trailers, they do not fit in the local campgrounds. The request has been reviewed by the district's bylaw department, and they have confirmed that they do not have any concerns with this request. If approved by council, the event organizers will be provided 7 permits, which will be placed in the windshields of the motorhomes while parked in the lot. The event will be charged $68.96 per day as per the district's fees and charges bylaw for the use of the parking lot. The parking lot will remain available for shared public use during the day. When council passed a resolution in 2022, which restricted overnight camping in this parking lot, it was noted this change would not exclude the use of the lot for camping when required for special events occurring in the community, which would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. It is required for requests such as this one to be considered and approved by council for an exemption to the district's traffic bylaw prior to providing overnight permits for the use of the parking lot. Staff recommend that council endorse this request, which supports expanded registration of car show entries and further enhances this large community event, which contributes to Summerland's tourism and economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Worship. Could I bring the motion forward? I think that this is an economic and a heritage group, and they've done this a long time. We're very pleased to have them doing it, and we can support them this way.
Okay, a seconder, Councillor Betts. Any discussion? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. Lori, does Peach Orchard still, I remember years ago, that's where the car club was down, and it was, they camped down there during this period. Does that not happen anymore with, it hasn't happened for a number of years. So is there I think this is a great idea. This is a great alternative, but I was wondering, like, it kind of fell off the table with them using using Peach Orchard, and just, if you could just bring me up to speed, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, through the mayor. They will be using the campground as just anybody else on the May long weekend. So I wasn't around when they had it, I think maybe exclusively for the weekend. But my understanding is that the campground's open and that they will be welcome to participate there. These particular rigs don't fit in the campground because they're so large, but I anticipate there will be a lot of people who are participating in the event attending the campground.
Thank you. I think it just came to mind that I think that the car show used to be before the campsite opened up, and it was prior to them opening up. And anyway, thank you. Thank you for indulging me.
No other comments. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Roads and Water Integrated 20-year Asset Management Plan. And now I'll ask the CAO to introduce this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a short introduction, and that is just to say this ties directly to strategic that I hear and the number of the to protect and enhance our infrastructure services. Bullet one under paper roads. So this is to get us there. Now we stand, if we're doing that, which road should be paved, and by extension, which of those roads perhaps has water mains under it that need replaced, etc. So this is an excellent planning tool for us. I think it's going to up our game in terms of what the future looks like here in Summerland. And I'm happy to turn it over to our Director of Public Works and Infrastructure to talk about this.
Thank you for that. I think we have a presentation coming up. But before we get to that, I'll just introduce that this is a very similar presentation to what Council saw 3 weeks ago at the Committee of the Whole. So I'll go through the actual presentation part quite quickly, and then we'll move into the actual story map, the public-facing document that residents will be able to use, and then we can definitely have time for some questions after that. So please slow me down if you want more information about anything. So just a very brief background. This is the culmination of a several-year project, starting with the 2019 Asset Management Program. This is a multi-use risk assessment tool to help with managing the prioritization of our annual infrastructure investment. That's a lot of words. It's a grant-funded project that we sort of reinvigorated about a year ago, starting with a council workshop. So some of the background information that we have to work with is, and the reasoning for putting this project together is, as you can see on this graph, the expected remaining life of our water system is about 45%, and our roads is about 32%. So we've got a significant deficit in both of those systems that we're trying to allocate monies to each year. So the purpose of this plan is to complete a risk assessment to identify high priority projects for asset renewal. We're specifically looking at water and roads. We didn't look at the sewer system as it's quite new, but in subsequent versions of this document, maybe 10 or 15 years from now, we will add in sewer systems to it. We'll actually see what the plan looks like, the public facing part of it, in a few minutes, but there is a full report that outlines all of the assumptions we made, all of the meetings we've had, how we prioritized each of the projects, the scoring for each of the projects, and the background. So that'll be available on our website for people to look at, but we are encouraging the digital story map as opposed to reading the several page report that we have there. So we'll get to that in a little bit here. So how we developed this plan, we started out with a risk assessment for the condition and capacity of both our roads and water mains. Once we identified the projects, we came up with prioritization criteria, and that was the meeting we had with council a year ago where we determined which things were going to be our priority, or which tools we were going to use to prioritize all of our criteria. We then, as a staff, met, evaluated, prioritized all the projects, and developed this draft plan that we're going through right now. We did a risk assessment, and this risk assessment was done in two parts. There was the road risk assessment, and so there's the likelihood of a road to fail. So this is, essentially the condition that road is in at this time. And then there's also the consequence of that failure. So if it's a minor road, it's probably not as big of a deal if there was to be a failure or additional potholes within that road. But if it's a road like Prairie Valley Road and we have to close the road to repave it or anything like that without notice, that's going to be a big consequence. With regard to the water mains, it's very similar. The likeliness of failure, a lot of that's just from historical. There's quite a few water mains that we know once or twice a year they're going to fail, and we're going to be out there at 2 a.m. repairing them. So those ones will have a higher likelihood of failure. As well, there's the type of material used in that water main and the age of that water main that goes into that scoring. And then there's the consequence scoring. So that's if it's a main water main that feeds most of town, obviously the scoring is going to be a little higher than, let's say, a cul-de-sac that maybe only services a few homes that if they are off, there's not that many people disrupted. So this goes into our risk assessment to come up with our top priority roads and water mains within the district. So this graph or these drawings just show the actual scoring of that. So you'll be able to see these on our story map when people decide to go on there. So from those, the priority projects, we put them into our prioritization sequence. The first prioritization was strategic risk mitigation. The second one is availability of external funding. So this is if a project is, say, grant funded, or let's say a developer could potentially participate in contribution to the project. The third one was the level of service resources. So this is trying to minimize the amount of staff time needed to be out on a project or out repairing something that it's not just general maintenance, it's actually failed, or just general maintenance, day-to-day service, say pothole filling and that sort of thing. So trying to reduce that. The fourth is alignment with strategic goals. Does this road fall within our downtown plan, or is this road identified in some other section of the strategic priorities? And then finally, there's the affordability. And this is if there's an opportunity to bundle a project. So this is doing a water main and a road at the same time, or water main, road, and potentially sewer. Or phasing a project. So as council is well aware, we're doing the Dale Meadows Road project this year, but we've phased it into 2 phases, the east and the west phase, just because it's not affordable to do it all in one year. So we've put all this together and we've come up with a draft plan that following today we'll actually hopefully get into circulation. So now I'm going to try sharing my screen. Maybe. Perfect. Okay. So I don't have somebody to drive me through this time, so we're just going to try walking through it. This is the forward-facing document that on our website, as soon as we get this up and running, so in the next few weeks, as long as council's okay with it at the end of today, this will be the link that people can go on our front page of the website, click on this, and they'll see this. And we call it the story map. And so what this basically does is it walks through some of the history of the project all the way through to the final product that we have. So we're recommending people look at this as opposed to the report, but the report is available if people are interested in looking at it. So it does start out with some information on the history of this project. It walks through a lot of asset management that people may or may not know much about. So it talks about the history of the asset management, what we've been striving to do over the last little while. The collection over the last few years, we've collected quite a bit of data, and we're taking all that data to try to basically create a useful document that doesn't just sit on the shelf. So again, most of this is what I've just walked through in the presentation, but this is the background. So it actually has links to a lot of our documents that we refer to as well. For example, the 2019 Integrated Asset Management and Infrastructure Investment Forecast. If people are curious as to what that is, because we keep referring to it, you just click on this and it directs you to that site on our website. So this is the actual 20-year plan coming up here. Again, we note that it doesn't include the sewer system, as that's new. It also doesn't include timelines for when projects are going to be done. Things can change from year to year. Priorities can change. Funding models can change. So we haven't put actual years on here. We've just put it as priorities. So the priority of each project. But that said, any project can be skipped for a valid reason if council chooses to do one project 1 year versus another, or if we only have a certain amount of money to put towards a project. This does offer projects that range from the $100,000 range up to several million. So if there's a little bit of additional money, then maybe there's a project we can skip forward. Okay, so it also has links to things like our cycling trails and our sidewalk master plans within this document here. So you can actually find quite a bit of information from here. So for our water system, with the expected remaining life of 32%, the average annual funding amount of 1.6 million is needed to keep these service levels where they're at. So you can see here, there's a couple of our existing water mains or ones that we've just pulled out of the ground recently. So a lot of them they do look like this when we pull them out, and that's why we prioritized those ones to be replaced. Some of them are from the 30s, actually quite a few of them are from the 30s, so we do need to replace them. The total replacement value is about $96 million. So there's a significant amount of infrastructure out there. So then if people are interested in looking at the whole water system map, there is a map here that you can click on, and it'll show where there is a water main within your street or within your area. Very similar to the roads, the expected remaining life of 45%. The total replacement value is $74 million, and I do think that's a little bit shy. I believe there is more than that. And they do range from excellent condition down to very poor. And as you can see here, quite a few of our roads are in the fair or poor category. So those ones are likely to be prioritized within the map. So then we do have the roads analysis here. This is, it's up to date, but most of the information came from a project we did in 2019 where we actually had a company come in and drive all the roads and gave us basically an inventory of where each road's at, what condition it's in. And it's still quite valid today. It'll probably have to be done in a few years' time again and added to this. So we then did the risk assessment and coming down here. The risk assessment shows, now I'll just zoom in on the water mains first, make sure it shows up there. Okay, so the risk assessment was done, and we would take each water main and come up with a risk score. And so as I sort of outlined earlier, it's made up of a number of different criteria, but the higher the score, the more risk there is. So for example, this stretch of water main on Victoria Road scores a 25, and that's out of 25. So it's definitely a priority project. But there are some other ones that rank a lot lower. Say this one's a risk score of 5, so it's going to be significantly less. So that's done for every single water main within the district. And then we can turn that layer off, put on the roads, and we've done the exact same thing with the roads through here. So obviously the ones that are in red are ones that definitely need to be looked at sooner than later. Okay, so following that, we ran it through the prioritization scheme, the 5 different prioritization things that we were looking at. And we came up with the final project list. So what we can do here is this takes all of our water projects, all of our roads projects, and the combined ones that are roads and water projects, and it puts them on a map for us so we can take a look at them. And then it sort of gives us a little bit of information on what each of those projects are. So I'll just click this one, for example. So this one's Jubilee Road West. So this is between the high school and the middle school. So this is a project that actually council endorsed for completion this year. We're going to be paving it this summer. So on here, you can see this project is Jubilee Road West. The funding source comes from gas tax and the water and general reserve. So we can tell where the funding comes from. For future projects, we won't know that at the time of. That'll just, once council endorses a project in the budget process, we'll update that with whatever the funding comes from. Then we can actually open a little link here. So if people are wondering what the road looks like, it takes us to Google Earth or Google Maps, and you can actually look at what the condition's like. And I think this was probably taken a few years ago because it's in much worse condition than this right now. I'll just get out of there. And then for each of the projects, you can click on the project sheet. On the project sheet, it has a bit of an overview of the project. It has the approximate costs, and these are in 2022 dollars. So this is something that'll have to change through time. If there is a funding source, we can say where the funding source comes from. It tells what the reason for the project is. So this one's more of a roads project. And the main flag that we had was it's a road condition, as everybody's aware. There is a small water main that we are upgrading just on the west end of this project, but it's for the most part a road specific project. If we're tearing up a road and there's a water main or a bit of a water main in there that's really close to failure, obviously we would replace that at the same time. And on this sheet, you can see how this project was scored. So each of the criteria that we talked about, the strategic risk mitigation, external funding, level of service resources, they're all of the scoring is for each project is on here. So you can see how every project was scored out. So if one project you think, why was this one rated so high? You can just look at this and it'll provide that information. So I'll just back out of here. So we've got 3 different types of projects. So there's road and water projects. Those are ones that are they're required because the road obviously is failing and the water main is failing at the same time. So those ones are scored a little bit higher. Those are in the sort of the black color. Then I don't know what color this is, sort of a teal blue, are just the water projects. And that's where the water main is the issue. There's not really a roads problem, but the water main does need to be redone. And then there's ones that are just road projects, and those may have no water mains underneath them, but the road is in rough shape and does need to be repaired. So we've sort of scored them through that. For each project, there's a project list on the left-hand side. So I guess we can just do the one we just looked at, the Jubilee Road West. You click on it and it does tell you which priority it is. It tells you the length of the road replacement, 268 meters. We should add a meters on there. Length of water main replacement that's required. This one doesn't require a water main replacement, so we left that out. And then here's the estimated cost at $700,000 for that project. So if we find one that has a water main component, this one's right next door to it, right in front of Municipal Hall here. This project will have road replacement component, 400 meters of water main, and then an approximate $600,000 price tag to it. This price tag doesn't include things like sidewalks for most of the projects, unless it's an integral part of the project. Obviously, when these roads when they come to council for budget approval, we would put in there that to do sidewalks, it'll be an additional component, or we'll add that to the project if it makes sense. This is strictly just the asphalt component of the road and the water mains. Okay. So from here, our next steps are if council's okay with this plan and us moving forward with it, we would like to get this onto our website in the next few weeks. It's currently on the consultant's website, Urban Systems. We would have to integrate it to our website. And once that happens, our GIS administrator will have full control to be able to make any changes, to add things in. For example, Giant's Head's going to be paved in the coming weeks. We're going to put a completed sticker on it and add that as a completed project on this. So every time we complete a project, we'll put the completion date and the price that it came in, the final cost for it, so that people can see the projects as they're completed and then the ones that are still up and coming. We do want to get this out into the community so that more people can go on it, take a look at it, and call us with any questions that they have about it. It's pretty straightforward tool to use, but we do want to get the word out that this tool is available to everybody. So I don't know if there's time, if we have time, but if there's any questions that council has or things that they'd like to highlight.
Yeah, council, any questions? Thank you, Joe. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Joe. I really think that this is such an important document and living document that we can, as a council, make, decisions based on fact and risk and things that have been really thought out and looked at in making our strategic decisions about replacing roads. So thank you so much for this document. What I'm wondering, and I think probably a lot of Summerlanders wonder, is how cost on replacement repair seems so $8 for a 100-meter section. Can you speak to it?
Absolutely, through the mayor. Just like everything, costs are going up significantly. The cost for building a road, asphalt, that sort of thing, it's not similar to the cost of milk and bananas that you buy at the store goes up by 3% each year. Quite often these costs go up by a significant margin. Like last year, asphalt went up about 30%. And that's just, it's made of a bitumen product. And it's when you start doing that, it gets expensive very quickly. But every time you do these projects, there's the costs that you don't see, like traffic management. When you close a road, there's a significant cost to doing that. The testing that goes behind it, the engineering behind these projects, they are a significant expense to the taxpayer.
Thank you for speaking to that.
Thanks.
And I think that speaks to all the more reason why we need to have plans like these and why it needs to be integrated with water. I think if there's anything that symbolizes inefficiency in local government more is repaving a road 1 year only to go dig it up a couple years later to replace the water mains. And so this is, I think, the really exciting thing about this is that we can just address that and be more efficient in the way we do things. Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things too that I made particular note of when we had this discussion before is that as we work forward in how a council operates in the process, as our treasurer has spoken about, if you can do your planning in advance of the end of the year so that you know what projects you're going forward with, you can look for your bids earlier. Sometimes you get better pricing with getting that bids earlier. So the fact that you have factual management and assessment and risk and a way for the public to understand it and then to work it through the process of any given council, that it can be efficient and perhaps cut down on some costs, and the planning is pre-done. Those things make a big difference to our community and the process as a business, which is what a municipality is. It's a business. So I really appreciate the time that has taken, years in the planning, really efficiency, and we'll be better for working it forward.
just in addition to that, through the mayor, that's a very important part of this is it's planning all these projects ahead of time. And what you'll see coming to council in the future budgets is 1 year will be the design component of that project. The following year will be construction so that we can design it through the summer months, the year leading up to it, and have it in a tender ready spot for December, January, February, when usually the contractors don't have their projects all filled up for the coming year. They have time to do a proper bid. We do find that we get much better pricing by doing it that way. So if you do have the opportunity to plan ahead like a tool like this, it really does help financially in the long run.
Excellent. Thank you. No further questions. If someone would like to bring a motion forward, Councillor Betts.
I move the staff recommendation.
Okay, to endorse the plan. Councillor Peak seconding. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you, Joe. We'll do it again tomorrow. We're doing a podcast on this. That'll be on my next podcast. Will be with Joe on this plan. BC Transit Future Action Plan, our sustainability coordinator, please.
Okay, good afternoon. So for this document here, this is a follow-up report from staff. There's no new information here, rather it's reports that council can decide whether to adopt the Transit Future Action Plan. There are recommendations within it as well that council can consider, specifically increasing the hours of service by extending them on weekends and extending the hours till later on some of the current service days that we have, as well as adding on a potential new route for the district. This would be one that would be local, not a regional route. So it would be just based within the Summerland district district boundaries. With that being said, staff is recommending that council endorse the BC Transit Plan, the 2023 Transit Future Action Plan. And if council does consider taking on any of these recommendations that were provided by BC Transit, I do have recommendations for motions that can be considered by council as well today. And that's everything. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, this endorsement gives us the option to expand the services. BC Transit would still do public engagement and whatnot to establish before we establishing them. How does that work?
Through the chair. So yes, this would, if we were to endorse this, or sorry, if council were to endorse this plan, it's more of kind of like a just on its own without any recommendations for proceeding with any of the ones that they provided in there. They would just proceed as usual. But if we were to go with the extended delivery service hours and the Route 32 or, yes, they would be taking on a brunt of the administration. They would be assisting with the engagement and communication of that. That's kind of part of their contract with us. We would obviously do our own as well at the district level, but they would definitely be doing a brunt of that administrative work.
Okay, council questions? Don't see any. Someone like to bring forward a motion? Councillor, question? No.
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Okay.
So if we were to expand, for example, number one, Route 30, is that a decision that we could make in the fall? Like could at any time, I guess, could we come back to this and say, you know what, we want to try this now? Or is that something that we would have to decide today in terms of adding these possibilities?
Through the chair. So as far as I'm aware, yes, you can come back. That was a question that I had asked them earlier during the beginning stages of this this document being reviewed. So yes, if you decided to come back and say we would actually like to expand the hours, but we didn't provide a motion here, that can be done. It'll take a bit of time to be done within the year itself, depending on when you go forward, but it could be possible, yes.
Yeah.
Just because I'm thinking, we have free transit over the next year. So I'm thinking if we do have a bump in ridership, we might, consider, this plan is 3 years, right? Till 2026, or sorry, 4 years.
Through the chair, so the recommendations are split into a few different years. So the ones that are presented today are strictly for 2023, and then there are ones later on, but those would be reviewed again in the following year once they come back with a new, like the revised plan with any amendments and cost breakdown as
Right,
well.
okay, so if we do get a bump in ridership, which hopefully we will, then I think we could consider adding more service.
So I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I don't know if we have enough information to make a decision here. That's kind of the way I feel. I think we need, I don't know, perhaps a more in-depth staff report with an idea of what it is that we're looking at in terms of costs and everything like that. That's just my feeling. But Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this, my thought builds on what both of you are getting at, would be that we've just launched free transit. We're going to be trying to communicate to our residents that we want people to take the bus, that this route is available, the Route 30 is available Monday through Saturday. And as we communicate that, hear feedback from our residents, that would be an opportunity at that point to either to add the Sunday and as well to look at adding the Route 32, which to me would be kind of a build on our first year. So I don't know if we can push this back a year or if that's what council would like to do.
Councillor Peak, then Patton.
I understood that if we adopt the endorsement of the BC Transit 2023, then we're doing the free Route 30 and we're continuing with the transit the way we had it otherwise. If we don't make a decision on either the expansion of the Route 30 hours on Sunday or the Route 32 going down to the lake shore, then we would wait a year to see what the results are of this free service. And at that point, we would have the opportunity to go back to the BC Transit and have them review that option in terms of cost as well as the implications of it. Now, that's what I understood when we heard this before. I don't know if I'm correct in that or not.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I'm actually on the same page as you. This is really broad and doesn't really tell us what any financial implications are to us. So we'd be endorsing a plan that we really don't have a full picture on what the end result of cost is going to be to us if depending on the options taken. So I'm in your court with this, that I just can't see endorsing it at this point. Thanks.
That's a first. Odessa.
Through the chair. So just for further clarification, by endorsing this plan, it doesn't commit you to any of the recommendations within it. It's only if you direct staff to engage with BC Transit. So at this point, endorsing it, you're not committing to anything other than just saying in good faith, you agree with everything that's happening here, but those recommendations will not be implemented until you direct staff to go forward. With that being said, the cost of increasing service hours, it's no cost to us at like the forefront, but there might be just that operational cost at the back end. Same with the Route 32. So that is dependent on moving forward with provincial funding, which would be found out next year. And all that administration of the funding would be done through BC Transit. And then again, the operation and maintenance cost could be determined during. I could probably see if I could get anything from them beforehand, but at this point they've just said the cost is based off of provincial funding. If we don't get it, it won't move forward, and we'll try again in the following year if that is council's wish. But yeah, the detailed operation maintenance costs, I don't have them. I think that's something that would definitely have to go back to BC Transit with a request if we decide to move forward with this, or we have stronger thoughts, if council has stronger thoughts on proceeding with that.
Okay, not sure where we want to go from here. I mean, can we agree in principle? You know, that's CAO.
Yeah, I think that, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that is basically what we're asking today is if you agree in principle with the concept of the transit future action plan, that's all we're looking for today. And then further activities under that plan would require further consultations with council, more details, as you say, what our obligations are or not. But adopting this in principle does not import any obligations on council from a financial, operational, or other perspective.
Yeah, I don't think the question is so much endorsing the plan, and we can endorse that because that just gives us the option. It's the other in the staff report. There's a couple other motions about directing staff to engage with BC Transit on the expansion that I think we'd want to have in principle. So.
Sorry for my misunderstanding on that, Mr. Mayor. Yes, you could also do that in principle, in my view, just to allow us to have that mandate to have the dialogue. It'd basically be engaging in exploratory discussions with BC Transit, because otherwise I think it would be hard for us to get the understanding of what the operational costs are in order to inform you as to what your options are. So I think even if we had that mandate to explore with BC Transit would be all we need from today. And we could come back on those details without you necessarily committing to them at this time.
Okay, so how does that work for people? Yeah, would someone like to bring that motion forward then, Councillor Betts?
I move the staff recommendation that council endorse the BC Transit Future Action Plan.
And further to, sorry.
As presented.
Okay, so we can vote on that first, and then we can say if we want to do something else in principle. Okay, so I'll call the question. That's just the one that's up on the screen to endorse the plan, and this just gives us the option to move forward if we so choose. So I'll call the question on that, and then we'll all in favor. Any opposed? Councillor Patton's opposed, that carries. And then do we want a further motion to agree in principle of the expanding the Route 30 and Route 32 to allow for staff to engage with BC Transit to bring back further information, something along like that? Councillor Traynor?
I'm just wondering if we need a motion for that or if we can just give direction. Like I said, I really am interested to see how this route's going to go over the next year. I mean, I'd be okay with a motion, but I think if staff know that we're interested in learning about this, is that enough, or do you need to have
CEO?
Thank you through to Deputy Mayor. I mean, all we are really looking for is, as long as you're comfortable with engaging in that exploratory discussion, I'm comfortable doing that as a matter of direction from council. Absolutely, we'll go have those conversations. Don't really need it in a motion per se. That's fine. We just don't want to do anything council's not comfortable with. That's the key thing. Yeah.
So, council, are we comfortable with that? Okay, thanks. So thank you, Odessa. We'll move on to the BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement and our Director of Finance, please.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. The District of Summerland's transit system is operated through BC Transit, and we annually sign an operating agreement with them for this service. So the 2023-2024 operating agreement is very comparable to our historical agreements. Overall, we see an increase of $28,748 when we compare it to last year's agreement. The primary reason for this increase relates to increased operating costs, which do include fuel, vehicle maintenance, and insurance. So overall, our 2023 budget for transit services is $224,000, which is sufficient to ensure this service continues throughout the year. And that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Trainer.
Dave, just for context, do you know what BC Transit contributes to this? So this is our contribution for our service, but do you know that?
That's through the mayor. It's almost 50-50. I think it's 51% and 49%. I just can't remember who's on either side of that. So they would be very, very close to the same number we are.
Thank you.
I think they pay a bit more. We're just a bit less than, yeah. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Dave, for it in your report, it talks that we could be running a $10,000 to $15,000 deficit based on the free transit that we're going to be offering. Can you please remind me of where that money is coming from?
So through the mayor, we had budgeted, I believe it was $19,000 in revenue for the year for transit. I think last year our actual was about $22,000. So of course, when we budget, we tend to budget a little conservatively. Now that council has endorsed the free transit for the year, the data that we're looking, the Route 30 revenue is about 60 to 75% of our overall revenue. So that's where we've come up with this. We'll probably be losing about $10,000 to $15,000 of that revenue that we had budgeted for due to this decision of council. So that's just on the revenue side. What we're looking at here on this side is the actual operating agreement and what it actually costs us. So we've budgeted $224,000. We had offset that by the $19,000 of revenue. And basically what the report was trying to say was that of that 19,000, there's a good chance we won't actually recover 10 to 15 of it.
Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Someone could bring forward a motion. Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll bring the staff recommendation on the motion forward.
Okay, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Trainer. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Item 7.7, municipal top-up program and our sustainability coordinator. Thank you.
Okay, so for today's presentation, I'm just going to go over the highlights of this program that I'm bringing to council for their consideration. So I'm just going to go over what the municipal top-up program is, and it's operated and administered through Clean BC Better Homes, which is a provincial body, and why staff is bringing this to council for consideration. So just as a bit of background, heat pumps are a commonly used heating mechanical system in residential homes. And residential homes are also a big contributor to greenhouse gas emissions at the building level. It's a combination of materials and how they're built, how well they're sealed. But heat pumps are definitely an important component of that since the types of fuels that are used for heat pumps right now are primarily fossil fuel based. A lot of our emissions will come from those. So electrification has been pushed. You've probably seen or heard commercials through Fortis BC, especially, or even BC Hydro about converting and electrifying your heat pumps in your homes. So this is an important area within the community level and community energy and emissions plan that we can potentially hit with this potential program. And there we go. So heat pumps have also been addressed previously with the district. So we did a small pilot program with RDOS and the city of Penticton in Summerland last March to May 2021. And we just offered a group rebate. So the more people that joined the rebate program, the more money they could get back. And it was capped at 500 for the absolute max. While we had some residents participate, we found comments back from all three of the communities were just the rebate wasn't high enough, didn't really cover enough of the costs or provide enough of a top up to the existing rebates that were provided through the federal or provincial programs that offer rebates through heat pumps. And it just the worries that the lack of participation would mean a lower amount would be provided, which was the case. We only had 10 people, so only a few $100s were realistically possible. So with that being said, staff went back kind of to the drawing board and looked at an alternative being the municipal top-up program. So the top-up program operates in that we would provide through the district additional funds on top of the Clean BC Better Homes rebates that they offer, and in some cases the federal program as well. So this would potentially offer more than what that group rebate would offer, and it also kind of guarantees that if you are following the program requirements, minimum requirements for when you install it, what type of heat pump you get, you can have either $350 or $2,000 depending on the community that you're in or the type of heat pump that you are going with. It would only run at minimum for a year, and it could be extended further. And then there's a quarterly start date. So for us, we would look at something in July 1st of this year, with a couple months to get an agreement written up, clarify the cost and amount, and get some promotional material as well to make sure that there's a lot of awareness for the program. So for those options, the Clean BC Better Homes only offers two, at least for the fuel switching version. So if you were to do a fuel switching heat pump program and offer a municipal rebate, we would either do 300 or 50 or 2,000. That is dictated by Clean BC Better Homes. So there's no in between. You can't provide 1,000, you can't provide 750. They give us two options to work with. And then they also provide the option for a $500 electrical upgrade. In many cases, they said that usually there's about 2 people per 20 or so, or 10 people that take part that need an upgrade. And they also provide, on top of the 500 here, additional electrical upgrade. So this would be a top up to both a heat pump and an electrical upgrade. Depending on which type of heat pump and your home, you could between 500 and 6,000 can be also offered through the federal government, and it can be stacked up to 100%. They don't see it too often where 100% of the costs are covered, but in the case that it is, they'll just adjust the grant depending on what that total cost is. So this ends up being a really good financial incentive for people to sign up, and also a bit more worth their while compared to the group rebate that we tried last year. At the administrative side of things, Summerland would just enter into an agreement with Fortis BC and Clean BC Better Homes, as they would be the administrating body for this. We would just simply provide kind of additional engagement communication on our end as far or as much as we want, as well as the funds to actually provide for the municipal top-up. Fortis BC would provide us a quarterly invoice, depending on how many people come through, and then we would just pay that off when it comes in, maxed and capped at that amount that we agreed to, that council decides on. So for an example to kind of see how this might apply, if you were to have a couple that has still oil-based heating in their single-family residential home, and they are trying to look to decrease their emissions because the district of Summerland is looking to reduce community emissions, and we're really trying to promote, good community involvement, they find out that there's a municipal top-up that we offer in addition to the provincial program as well. So they find out the type of heat pump they want, and it's a fuel switching one. So they get additional rebates from us as well as the province, and their total cost for them hypothetically is $5,500. With that being said, let's go to the next slide. So with their total cost at $5,500 before tax, because tax is not included as part of the rebate, The rebate from Clean BC is 3,000 plus 500 for the electrical upgrade. Summerland's top up hypothetically is 2,000 plus the 500 electrical. So in total, they actually get more than what the cost of their actual upgrade is. Again, this is all very hypothetical, just trying to kind of play into the max amount that could possibly be seen. So they would most likely get our top up total, and then the Clean BC Better Homes one would just kind of fill in the rest. And they wouldn't make money off of this. They would only get the maximum amount that the administrative body would provide for, but technically they could get 100%. So this reflects this kind of best case scenario for a potential family. So with that being said, looking at this program, it definitely aligns with a number of our municipal, provincial, and federal initiatives for reducing emissions. Our community energy and emissions reduction plan has notices for looking at reducing and promoting energy efficiency programs to help residents reduce their emissions and increase energy efficiency. The Clean BC Roadmap to 2030 also looks at residential buildings and specifically calls out the cost of heat pump replacements as being a potential barrier to implementation and reducing community emissions. So we would potentially address that barrier by providing a financial incentive that helps to further reduce the cost on the residents in the community if they want to do a fuel switching heat pump. And then our climate adaptation and preparedness strategy, in addition to providing just lower emissions, heat pumps also offer heating and cooling, which is good for indoor air quality during extreme heat or cold events. It also provides indoor air quality. So during wildfires, it also provides a filtration option as well. So the majority of people that were killed or died, unfortunately, during the 2021 heat wave were in their homes. They didn't have proper air conditioning or they didn't have proper air circulation. So this could potentially, with heat pumps, provide a better system for people if they so choose to apply and use this and deal with some of those issues that we saw in the previous years. And the local government climate action program, we have climate adaptation at the community level. So this would very much address that, as well as emission reduction at the community level, as well as our strategic priorities at the council level, which goes with addressing adaptable and affordable communities. So switching to heat pumps with this financial program would help reduce costs at the residential level, but also work towards building an adaptable community. So at the financial level, staff is recommending that a total of $21,000 be earmarked from the Climate Action Reserve, with $2,000 as the recommended option that we provide as a municipal top-up for 10 applicants, and then $500 per electrical upgrade for 2 applications. So 1,000 plus the 20,000 for our 21,000 total. With that being said, these are the recommendations from staff. So commit to $21,000 towards the costs of the municipal top-up program, can't speak today. Committing the $21,000 from the Climate Action Reserve, and then doing a bylaw amendment to reflect that as well. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oda, so what do you mean by an electrical upgrade exactly? What does that cover?
So in many cases, when you're replacing a fossil fuel heat pump to an electrical, you may not have the electrical capacity to support that, or you'll have to upgrade some of your existing conduits. So the electrical upgrade just provides additional funding for that.
Sorry, so it goes together with the heat pump. It's not a separate, it's with the heat pump, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So
Okay.
the electrical upgrade is to provide that electrification of your heat pump.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I really have a problem with 21,000 being earmarked for 10 applications. And Odessa, you may know this, but on Friday, Fortis came out with a hybrid early adapter program that does allow a fossil fueled furnace to be paired with a heat pump, so that the heat pump works in the shoulder seasons where you still have your forced air and you can use your blower from your forced air. You can, as you spoke about, the air conditioning in regards to the cooling. The rebates that Fortis is looking at is $20,000, $15,000 for the system with $5,000 for upgrades. So my question is, we are going to earmark $21,000 for 10 applications. I would rather see, if we're going to invest that kind of money, that we invest it on a broader community awareness instead of earmarking where, this is going to sound cruel, but I'm going to say it. There are those that can afford it and there's those that cannot afford it. The ones that can afford it will get the rebate. The one that can't afford it can't even afford to do the system, so they'll never see a rebate. So I really commend you on this with the heat pumps. It is the way of the future, but I'm really having a problem with the 10 applications. And I know where you got the 10 applications from was from the pilot with the RDOS, but I think we have a broader range of citizens within Summerland that perhaps there's other ways that we can go to help them achieve or in regards to their greenhouse gas. And there has to be other programs that we can look that would hit a broader base of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to concur wholeheartedly with my colleague across the table. I looked at this also, and those 10 applicants. So we have no say. So the guy, you know, I'm not picking, you know, so the guy with the $2 million house versus the person with 2 children, single person with 2 children, who picks? So there's not, you know, who are we helping the most? You know, and that's where I'm having difficulty. I've been through this. I just went through the whole heat pump, air handler. I'm supposed to get $2,000 back from the province. I'm supposed to get up to $5,000 or $6,000 back from the feds. The Fed program is, you know, I'll be lucky if I'm still alive before I see the money from the feds. I went through insulation upgrades on a rebate. I can qualify for windows on a rebate. You know, I think there's a lot of really good programs out there, but you know, something that we do really well in Summerland is thinking outside the box and being innovative. There's no doubt about it. And I think there's other areas that we could spend $21,000 and affect a way larger portion of our population than 10 people. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Odessa. We always appreciate the ideas that you come forward with. I mean, it's pushing us as a community to think about how to adapt. And so kind of building on, however, what the other gentlemen at the table are talking about at this point is that for me, our commitment to the zero cost transit and trying that for a year instead of 6 months is actually a really big step forward in affecting emissions reductions to many more of our citizens. And I think it's a really big step forward that we can champion just a little bit louder. And for me, I would rather see more positive messaging to our residents about the transit so we can utilize the transit and build on our transit strategy and put our energy and money in that direction rather than affecting change for a very small amount of people who likely can be able to afford these huge home changes anyway. So that's where I feel with that.
So this would just apply to people who have who heat their homes with oil, not people who currently heat it with, say, electricity to switch over. Is that correct?
Through the chair. So this is just the one part of the Clean BC heat pump rebates that are available. So this is specifically for fuel switching. This is directed at that. So it would be any fossil fuel, natural gas, oil, propane, anything like that. It would apply to any electrification of it. In the report that I have, there's a table that also looks at the the hot water heat pumps as well. There are those options too. So there's a variety, and they also do have income-based rebates as well. So for those who are on the lower end of the income bracket, they do have rebates for that. This one is just very broad, and we are starting with 10, and it can be expanded further. It's for 1 year, so we're not committed to any longer or any. If we want to extend it, we can. If we want to add more, we can as well. So it is quite flexible.
So anybody would be able to apply for it. Anybody who heats their home with natural gas, anybody who heats their home with electrical, no.
Not electrical, so it has to be fuel switching. There are rebates for those who are maybe upgrading their current electric heat pump with an electric. It just ends up usually being a little less than what either a municipal top up is or a fuel switching rebate offered just through Clean BC.
All right, thanks. Councillor Peak.
Thank you, Worship. I definitely think $21,000 spent in this manner is inefficient use of property tax funds. I think it needs to be broader based, and I think this is not the way we should be doing it. So I wouldn't support this particular program.
Councillor Trainer.
Odessa, can you remind us, the money in this fund, where does it come from again?
Through the chair, it comes from the province, and it's specifically earmarked for climate adaptation and climate emission reduction projects, both the community and corporate level. So we get it each year.
The money in this reserve is not tax dollars. Well, it is from, I guess, from the province, but it's not local, like it's not Summerland, I guess, directly is what I'm saying.
Through the chair, that's correct. This is directly given to us. So through the LGCAP program, what was previously CareUp, we would receive these funds, and they were used in a similar way, but strictly corporate previously. Now it's community-based. So we have a bit of an extension as to how we can use these funds now.
Okay, but any way that we use them has to be within guidelines, right? Okay, thank you.
But sorry, just to clarify, but the money would come from our reserve or our.
Through the chair, that's correct. So as per the motion here, the $21,000 would be taken from the Climate Action Reserve Fund.
Any other discussion, comments, questions? If not, someone could bring a motion forward. Councillor Betts.
Just a point of clarification. We'll bring it forward, discuss, and then vote?
So I presume if you don't want to bring the staff recommended motion forward, you could just move to receive for information.
I move to receive this for information.
Second by Councillor Patton. Any further discussion? Councillor Barkwell.
I had the same concerns as being discussed when I first saw this. I'm thinking there was a certain uncomfortableness with benefiting only 10 people. And if we don't proceed, I'm sure some people will perceive incorrectly, I think, but they will perceive us as not supporting climate action and climate change. It's just I have to emphasize that this is a choice between how we spend limited funds that we have for these sort of activities. Yeah.
Thank you very much. To the club reserve, there are certain conditions. Are frames to use that reserve in? I know there's conditions. Are there timeframes?
Through the chair, yes. So technically, we can hold it up until about 2025, but we have to have most of it spent by then, or a majority. We can't be making a big pot of money sitting around. 2025 is when the province will review the program and seeing how much we've spent and where we spent it, so they can decide whether they want to continue providing us the funds that we are getting each year. Plus, do we continue with the program as well? So spending it is in our best interest on community, corporate-based emissions and adaptation programs.
Yeah.
Then I'd like to see it on a broader base as we move forward. But I appreciate knowing the date in which they're doing that review, because I knew there was something. Thank you, Jessica.
I think, on that, it might be, we could get if council could get some sort of idea of what kind of options and what it is, what kind of projects are eligible to spend that money on, that might help us. provide direction, so. Go ahead, Odessa.
Through the chair. So back in January, the spring, like early winter, spring this year, we did the Climate Action Reserve Fund policy brought forward for amendments based off of the LGCAP program. So that policy is currently what directs you guys. It's not really a set in stone. You have the discretion to be flexible with it within certain parameters, but that policy does say where the money can be spent, approximately what percentage of the climate action reserve can be spent on what items. So that policy is available for your reference when these kinds of projects come forward.
Maybe that's something the Climate Action Committee can advise us on as well. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Worship. I think, as per Councillor Barkwell, I think that the 10 applications is the stickler for me. I think Odessa has done a great job. But I really do think that there has to be a broader community inclusion for $21,000. And the education process out there in regards to heat pumps, in regards to the new Fortis program for the hybrid systems. These are phenomenal programs moving forward. But I think if we're going to do a subsidy or a grant to our citizens, I think we have to hit a greater number than 10. So anyways, thank you so much.
Councillor Van Alphen? No, good. Anyone else? I'll call the question. Receive for information. All in favor? That carries. We have a break on our agenda. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to jump in there. I liked what you said about going to the Climate Action Committee. It might be helpful if we had direction from council through a motion on that. Is that a possibility?
It might be. If someone wants to bring one. No. Yes. Are you seconding, Councilor Barkman? To refer, what would the motion be? To refer spending on the fund, on the climate, on CAREP, whatever that's called now.
Recommendations on how to spend the funds in the future, some ideas from the Climate Action Committee to be brought back to council for consideration.
In line with the CAREP parameters.
Obviously in line with the CAREP.
Yeah, I think that would be that's the motion right there.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Seconding, Councillor Barkman. Okay, any discussion on that, Councillor Barkman?
Yeah, I think that the Climate Action Committee will love this challenge. I think they, as mentioned earlier and other topics, that they've been sort of searching for things that they could really sink their teeth in. They really are a keen group. Well, the group that we had before, and the new group will be just as keen to do whatever they can. And this is something that I think they'll really turn their minds to.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, so we have a break scheduled. We want to take a break? Yeah, okay. So 10 minutes, back at 2:40. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. So Canadian audit standards require that those with recognized authority have assessed that they have taken for the statements. So the District Audit BDO Canada audit work to an onion. The financial statements represent financial position of the District of Summerland as at December 31st, 2022. Once council has approved the statements, BDO will formally issue their opinion. Now, prior to handing today's presentation over to Mario Parati, partner with BDO Canada, and engagement partner for the district's audit, I wanted to briefly comment on the statements overall. The financial statements reflect a continued improvement in the financial position of the District of Summerland. Two financial indicators that I would like to highlight this afternoon are net financial assets and reserves. Net financial assets measure a municipality's ability to cover its financial liabilities with its financial assets at a given point in time. The district's 2022 financial position reflects net assets of 17.5 million, an increase of 150,000 over the previous year. Now, this may not seem like a substantial increase. However, when taking into account that the district took on $6.4 million in debt for the Giants Head Road project, this increase is a positive result. District reserve funds at the end of 2022 totaled $42.5 million, which is an increase of $5.5 million over 2021. This increase in reserve funds is attributed to two factors. The first relates to the $14.4 million operational surplus, as those funds had been budgeted to be spent on capital projects. And the second factor relates to overall capital dollars spent, and specifically the use of reserve funds to pay for those acquisitions. In 2022, the district had budgeted $29 million in capital acquisitions, with $13.3 million to be funded through reserves. Actual capital spending in 22 was $13 million, with $8.2 million being transferred from those reserves. So those two items make up that overall increase. I'd now like to call on Mr. Parati to provide council with BDO's overall comments on the district's financial statements and their audit findings. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council for having me here today. Your Director of Finance did a great introduction and took some of my speaking notes. So we will try to move through this quickly. But as mentioned, we are here to present the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022 for the District of Summerland. And the statements that you have in your package are marked draft, and it's important to remember that I will not be able to sign off until, as mentioned, Mayor and Council have had the statements passed in a public meeting, and we will be signing off today if it is council's pleasure to do so. So these statements do present fairly, in our opinion, the results for the district for the year ended December 31st, 2022. And I'm going to walk you through a brief PowerPoint, but you do have the full set of statements in your package, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the statements. And if there's anything that I can't answer, I'm sure that I can defer to management for that. And we'll start with your statement of financial position. So this is a snapshot of all of the assets, liabilities, and the surplus that you have at the end of the year compared to the 2021 year. And as mentioned, it was a very stable year. And we see on the surface, the net financial assets only changed by $150,000. But as mentioned, there is more to it than that. And if we look at your financial assets, this is all the cash you have, investments and cash coming in. It did increase from 48 million to 51 million. And our liabilities, if we exclude the debt, decreased from 19.8 million to 18.4 million. And so again, we can see that the net financial assets didn't change very much. But when we factor in that there was $6 million in new debt this year for infrastructure, your financial position did increase, and that's what triggered the reserve funds to increase as well. And the last measure that I want to touch on this page is your tangible capital assets. So this represents all of the money that you've historically spent on your infrastructure, less the depreciation on it. And we can see that jump from 117 million up to 131 million. And there are significant projects in progress, as was previously mentioned. And as we move on to the next slide, we have your revenue position from the statement of operations. Total revenue came in at 50.4 million compared to a budget of 48.1 and the prior year at $43 million. And if we look at the first stack, we have user fee sales of service coming out of COVID. Every financial statement that I've seen for a local government this year, we've seen everybody beat budget and beat last year, because as we emerged, we didn't know how things were going to resume to normal. And we're seeing that consistent where revenues exceeded budget. We also saw, though, that government transfers, this is all your grant funding, did come in under budget. And again, this is timing of capital projects. And as mentioned, there was less capital spending than anticipated, and that's partly because of some of the grants as well. And then contributions, the last item, which you see a nice little stack there that came in. This represents mostly revenue that comes from assets being given to the district when there's new development. And a significant portion of this amount that was unbudgeted is from the Hunters Hill project. And if we look at the next slide, this just breaks down your revenue by source. And when we talk about north of $50 million in revenue, how is it all breaking down? And, you know, I will highlight that taxation is a quarter, or sorry, is a quarter of this, which again, we see some local governments, it's closer to 50%. You are more on the lower end, which given the additional services like electrical and that you offer is not unexpected. When we look at the expenses, total expenses came in at $36 million versus a budget of $39.7 million, and last year at $31.8 million. There were a couple of main items that I want to highlight, and you know, where we were either significantly underspent or overspent on budget. The first is protective services. This is underspent again, and this is due to budgeting for the actual amount of members of the RCMP that you were trying to have versus being short a couple members as well. The other item that I wanted to highlight is transportation services, which was overspent on budget. With how much capital project was going on, and especially with all the road work, a lot of the team was busy working on the capital. So you were left to subcontract out some of the day-to-day line painting, other maintenance like that, which is why you were overspent there. But again, came in under budget, which in a year of high inflation, that's actually quite well, not surprising, but a welcome note, because given that where we see inflation at now 6.7%, it's important to understand that that's general inflation. Municipal inflation is higher than that because you're paying for fuel, painting the road lines. You look at that, wage costs, all of those things drive inflation at a higher rate than general goods. So being under budget, I think, is a good news story. And this slide just breaks down where the $36 million went by the various areas. And if we move to the next page and talk about the net change in financial position, we have a total surplus for accounting purposes this year of $14.4 million. And again, as a reminder, when we look at how we budget, you've recently gone through your budgeting process. As you know, you budget to a balanced budget. These financial statements don't align with how the community charter requires you to budget because it follows public sector accounting standards. So things like your capital projects are an expense in your budget. Here they become an asset. Reserve transfers in and out are revenue expenses on your budget. Here, there are nothing. So this slide gets you about as close as we can to how you actually did against your surplus or against the budget. And if we start for amortization of 14.3 million, deduct our capital projects of 17.8 million or 17.7 million, add back amortization, which is non-cash, we get to a change in net financial position of $152,000. And then we know that you borrowed this year as well. So then that borrowing is why we now have more cash in the bank, because this slide ignores your overall borrowings. And then when we get to the last slide, in terms of talking about the numbers, we get to your accumulated surplus and your statutory reserves. Your reserves are sitting at $11.1 million. And the big increase that we had this year was in the capital works reserve, as mentioned, is there because increase for future capital projects. And that increased by $4 million compared to the prior year. And so I'll pause there and open up for any questions on the numbers themselves before I briefly touch on the audit results.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions? Councillor Barkwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the very first slide, What liabilities went down so that we wound up in a net position other than the Municipal Finance Authority one, which went up? So which ones some must have gone down to wind up in that position?
Yeah. So there's two things. And when we look at the net financial position, it's, a combination of your net financial assets increasing by $3 million. The liabilities that did decrease, your accounts payable decreased by $1 million. So just based on timing of when expenses were paid. Landfill closure and post-closure liability decreased by $400,000. And your deposits also decreased by $500,000.
Good. Just turn off your mic. Oh, sorry. Thanks. Any further questions? No, carry on then, please.
So, and just in closing, in terms of the actual audit results and how things went, I want to first take the opportunity to thank both your Director of Finance and your Finance Manager. Perhaps more of a larger thank you to the Finance Manager, who works very diligently with our team to make sure that we get all the information that we require. She does do her best to make it as smooth of a process as an audit can be, because we know it is a disruption for staff. But the audit was completed on time this year, and there were no deviations from the planned approach. So when we come in and do our testing and do our planning exercise, we first come in and we look at, okay, what changed in the operations of the district in the year? And then we think about what the risks are, what procedures we need to do to address the risks, and what results should look like. And so if our testing comes in and it meets our expectations, that last piece there, then we don't have to deviate. And as we've been hearing about some of the issues that happens in some of the other local governments, that's a very important piece for me to bring forward. Testing of transactions with management, we do look at transactions with senior management and with members of council, because while you have a system of internal controls, there is always within any organization certain people that can work around the system. We had our targeted tests with those, and we had no issues as well. And so overall, it was a very smooth audit again this year. Are there any questions on the audit results and how we did in terms of the testing?
Thank you. Council, any questions? Don't see any. So it's certainly good news that our financial position has strengthened. So appreciate that. Appreciate all your work. And I guess we just need a motion to approve. Councillor Van Elfen, second. Councillor Patton. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. We'll see you again next year. 7.10. That's the 2023 tax rates bylaw. Director of Finance, please.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. Council adopted the district's 2023 to 2027 5-year financial plan on February 27th, 2023. Seems like a lifetime ago now. This plan includes a 3.76% property taxation revenue increase for 2023. 2.12% of that increase related to new debt payments for Giants Head Road and water main reconstruction project. So overall, the average residential property assessed at $899,173 will see an increase in taxes over last year of $64.69. The average commercial property assessed at $389,317 will see an increase in taxes over last year of $76.11. The proposed bylaw in front of council today sets the property tax due date as July 7th, 2023. And in addition to the proposed tax rate bylaw, again, I wanted to remind residents about the change to the homeowner grant process that took place a few years ago. The province of BC took over administration of their own program. Eligibility criteria has not changed, but again, homeowners cannot apply for their homeowner grant at Municipal Hall. they must apply directly to the province using the province's online system. Or for those homeowners that do not have a computer or who wish to do that via phone, they can call the province's toll-free number, which will be included in the package when their property taxes come out. We do strongly encourage homeowners to claim their homeowner grants as soon as they get their property tax notices. And we are looking at sending those out right after the May long weekend. And that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. And then you're looking to schedule a special meeting of council to for final reading. Is that the idea? Yeah. Okay. So council, any questions? We'll need I won't be back in time from Sulga, I don't think, on the 28th at 1 o'clock, but do we have will we have a quorum here? If this is, if we pass the first 3 readings. Okay, so there's 2 of us that probably won't be back in time. We need 4 to be here.
Can we zoom in? Yeah.
Oh, maybe I can. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Deputy Mayor will chair that meeting, and I'll zoom in if. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So if there's no questions or discussion, if we have a motion brought forward, Councillor Van Elfen, staff recommendation, Councillor Patton. No discussion. If there's no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Road closure bylaw. Corporate officer, please.
Thank you, Mayor Holmes. At its April 25th, 2022 regular meeting of council endorsed the Eco Village concept plan and directed staff to initiate a road closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw for required road allowance closures for allowances located within the Eco Village and solar and storage site. So before council is consideration of the first 3 readings for road closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw number 2023-014. The road subject to be closed is an undeveloped road allowance that is historically located on district land. And by closing this road allowance, the district may proceed with the solar and storage construction and for further planning to occur for the Eco Village road development. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and I believe Brad is on the line for any technical questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, right now when the road there that's going to be closed, when it crosses Morrow, becomes Denike, and it was Oatley. So assuming, does that name stay? There'll be road access of some kind, they'll be in a different place, and for the Eco Village and the solar site, will Oatley names stay, or will it just be a continuation of Denike, which seems a little less confusing?
Good luck with that.
Might defer this one to Brad, who has his hand up.
Yes, hi. Through the chair to Councillor Barkwell. That's something I think we could discuss. Normally for road naming policy, we do have kind of some set rules to follow, but I think there might be some flexibility to either continue Denike or use Otley Avenue, which is currently what the road right away there is defined as. But it would make sense to keep the Denike name continuing through. But open to any feedback from council on that.
Councillor Peak.
I would think for emergency responses would make more sense to leave it on as Denike.
I guess that's not a decision we really need to make right now, so we can ponder that one. Councillor Van Elfen.
Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Patton. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. 7.12, Council Code of Conduct, corporate officer, please.
Thank you again, Mayor Holmes. So the community charter requires that within the first 6 months after its first regular council meeting following a general local election, council must decide whether or not to establish a code of conduct for council members, or if a code of conduct for council members has already been established, whether it should be reviewed. As the District of Summerland has a council code of conduct, policy 100.23, council must consider whether or not the code of conduct should be reviewed. Should council choose not to review the existing code of conduct, it must make on request a statement respecting the reasons for its decision. In considering whether or not to review the code of in considering whether or not the code of conduct be reviewed, council must consider the prescribed principles for codes of conduct set by regulation. And the prescribed principles are as follows. Council members must carry out their duties with integrity. Council members are accountable for the decisions that they make and the actions that they take in the course of action of their duties. Council members must be respectful of others, and council members must demonstrate leadership and collaboration. So the District of Summerland's current council code of conduct includes the foundational principles of integrity and honesty, respect, accountability, leadership, collaboration, creativity, and transparency. So before council is a recommendation that the code of conduct not be reviewed, as it is compliant with the Community Charter Section 113 and the principles of Code of Conduct Regulation 136-2022 and continues to reflect the viewpoint of council. However, staff are happy to take any direction from council regarding a review and associated amendments should council wish. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is more of a comment. After participating in the LGLA conference, I was just really encouraged when I reached out to the district staff to see if we had a code of conduct in place, as there's still many municipalities who do not. And I was pleasantly pleased to have that document forwarded on to me, reflecting the values of our council. And I think it's very meaningful. Other councils, the discussion at that time was how important it is to have this kind of document in place before potential friction arrives, so that you can govern the behavior and set expectations of council members in advance. And I just commend you for having done the work ahead of time. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're out in front of the curve a little bit on this. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Van Elfen?
Move staff recommendation.
Okay, second. Councillor Trainer? Yeah, I think, we this is less than a year old, this policy. We had a pretty in-depth discussion about it a year ago, and we looked at lots of different examples of different codes of conduct, and it seems to be working for us. So I'm good with it. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. No bylaws for adoption. No items removed from the consent agenda. We have public comment period. So anybody like to make a comment, please come up to the podium, push the button, and you have 2 minutes. Sorry, Bernie. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Bernadette Active, and of taking the bus, I take the on request, and he also takes the number 30, and I ride it almost every day. So I have 2 points to make. First, I think the idea of the free bus is great. And everyone I was talking to at the bus stop, or people I were talking to, finding out about it, are very excited about it. The problem is that a lot of people don't have access to the number 30 stop because it's so just downtown. And so, for example, when I was there the Friday, I took the bus on Friday, 7:18 a.m. bus. There were parents and others dropping off their kids. And one girl I was talking to said her mom wasn't feeling well and she was sick and she didn't know if she was going to get a ride with her mom and she was too far to walk. And there was one example, and I walked up. It took me an hour and 15 minutes. But it was great. I took the bus. So that is a concern, so that even though it's free, it might not really reflect the people that would take the bus. So I think in your experiment, it'd be a good idea to just try to put something in a few additional spots, like one in Lower Town, Peach Orchard and Lakeshore. My stop, that would be my stop. And then you could really see if that will change, because I think that will show, that would reflect really the need and the users you would get. And the other suggestion I thought, because I also take the on request, which is great, but I wonder if that service should be expanded, because now it only provides service in the morning. Well, it doesn't, it needs a bigger service because they can't pick me up if I'm in Picticton, because there's too many people using it. So if you had the on request, another on request bus, and I don't know how the funding goes for that one, then you could shuttle people to the Route 30, and then you wouldn't have to have more stops. So if you can either expand on request to pick people up, shuttle them there, because I'm from thinking that the on request is available for everyone. You don't have to be a senior or have any concerns or challenges. So if you can shuttle people, then parents don't have to drive. And others, like there was more than parents, there's other people dropping people off to try to connect. So that's it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And we'll take those comments on board. Mr. Bessler.
Hi, Council. Brad Besler, 18816 Garnet Valley Road. I have some questions about the Rotary Pier. Mayor, you repeatedly said the cost was estimated to be $1 million. CAO stat, you recently said the cost was estimated to be $500,000. How do you justify that cost discrepancy?
Sorry, Brad, you know, we're not answering questions here. We're happy to hear from you, happy to get your feedback. And you're more than welcome to submit your questions in writing or ask me afterwards.
Okay. Well, I have a question about permits. I was speaking briefly to Joe during the break, and he says it's just going to be a bit of a lengthy time to get the permit to remove the pilings. My concern is not about removing the pilings, it's how long the permit process is to put the new pilings in. The concepts are supposed to be brought forward on June 26th. I don't know how long council is going to take after that to decide which way to go forward. But let's say the permit process is 9 months from when you apply to when you get approved, and then you got to build it. If council isn't hitting certain deadlines, we might be without a pier for 2 years. And that's my concern, is that there's deadlines and there's timelines, and I just hope everything's aligning to make this happen. That pier is important to the community, and there's a lot of people that feel that way. So I just hope everyone's got their game face on and making it happen. And I'll close by saying that I'm happy to hear that the Rotary Club is going to be auctioning off or selling the wood. I know I'll be wanting to buy a piece of that. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anybody online? No, okay. So I would need a resolution to close the meeting to the public. Councillor Van Elfen, second.